All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. Over on Rumble, of course, over 100 people waiting to watch. I've got soup, by the way, brewing up and simmering right now on the stove, so it smells awfully good. It makes me hungry, and that makes me work harder, I think. I see Projectron7 on Rumble says, turd and turds. Very, very interesting statement. We got lots of that. I love the bants. It's basically the lifeblood of actually doing live streams when you think about it. Like looking at the chat and seeing like crazy shit that people would post actually is good to me. We're going to have to talk, unfortunately, about things that aren't so pleasant. Now, there are a couple of stories in here that are on the funny side, but the first one is definitely not. Iran-backed terrorists attacked U.S. troops 13 times in the last week with suicide drones and missiles, Pentagon says. With the impending ground invasion of Gaza, among other things, I warned this morning, we are now considerably closer to a war with Iran. And considering that Erdogan, and we'll talk about him separately actually, has gone completely fucking insane, that could be a really, really messy dust-up. It would be more than just a regional war. It would be a very major conflict, the most major that we've had in living memory, technically speaking. It would make the invasion of Iraq look tame by comparison. This is what Biden wants, by the way. He wants a war because he thinks that it'll help him get reelected, or reselected, rather. Honk, honk, ballot printers go burr. I've already explained why that might not actually happen, though. We can get into that, I suppose, to some extent. All the warmongers right now, though, Nikki Haley, McCain's family, Lindsey Graham, certainly. And of course, Biden and Blinken and all the usual gang of idiots right now, they're masturbating to the concept of a major regional war. Opinionated Junkie, thoughts on Trump's co-defendants taking a plea deal. Irrelevant. As part of the case, they're not even linked to the original charges against Trump. The whole idea is just to predispose any jury that's convened to thinking he's guilty because everyone else flipped. It really is just that. We've seen that happen, I think, before, actually. Lord of the Ree, war is gay. Well, it can also be heterosexual. What is definitely the case is that war is stupid, generally speaking. Unfortunately, all too many people are willing to cause others to go off and shoot and die for them. George Clowney. I'm going on vacation to Seattle today, making a pilgrimage to the ruins of the Chaz Gardens. Want me to send you a soil sample? I would, if I weren't in the Netherlands, I would say yes, but a couple of pictures will suffice. Yes, take pictures of where the Chaz Garden used to be so I can relive the good old days and probably choke laughing. When that first happened, when ISO would be fucking sending me pictures and news links to the Chaz Garden. Some of you remember that when they occupied the fucking Antifa zone there, and they were trying to plow in the garden and how shittily they were doing the job. As someone who actually has experience gardening, and not just normal gardening, but I've done hugelkultur, terra preta and stuff, including experimental things. Oh my God, I was laughing so hard. I think that was the hardest I laughed, man, and God, at that point, 5 years or thereabouts, at least. I had derealization not long before that. So maybe since the 2000s, it was the greatest chuckle ever. The garden that spawned a million memes. I'm glad it wasn't mine. The one thing that I can actually do and nobody criticizes me is grow plants. If I cook food, I get criticism. If I make predictions, I get criticism. If I weigh in on current events, I get criticism. If I grow things, somehow everything is okay. I'm like, maybe I should just have a dedicated gardening channel. SoulQuest216. Sticks, do you recall exactly which video you have where you talk about seeing a demon as a child? I've tried searching with no luck. Thanks, Clank. It'd be in the occult playlist, probably. I think I did a dedicated Stolas video, actually, in there fairly recently. So if you look up Styx Hexenhammer Stolas and you filter it through with the playlist, you should find it. Assuming YouTube allows that anymore. Their functions right now are definitely malleable. Lord of the Ree. Hey, Styx, finally living on some acreage. Want to make a garden. How do? Book? Again, the best thing that you can do is look it up online for the most part. I've got a couple of works that deal with basic aspects of gardening, Fruits of Eden, but I'm going to be making a second edition of that. I've never made a dedicated gardening book. I have, however, made a lot of gardening videos, and if you go through them and you listen to some of the advice that I gave, especially in the last few years worth of videos, you might find something that's useful. Terra Preta is definitely number one. All you have to do is take hardwood lump charcoal, nothing treated, so not, impregnated with lighter fluid. Grind it up. Don't use any metal when you're doing it, or else you might blow yourself up because charcoal powder is explosive. And then wet it with something that has reasonable nitrogen content, so compost tea or something like that. Composting is easy. You can get a rotary composter. There's open air composters, a million different designs. Terra Preta, you can make your own charcoal as well if you make a retort. And I would do that. Just keep in mind that most soil is carbon poor. And so by pumping the carbon of charcoal into the soil, you are increasing the yield potentially. It also helps with fighting off certain pests. It helps with keeping the soil microbes active, among everything else under the sun. When I dug in to what became the Viking garden, my most recent garden video from a few weeks ago, I was very surprised at how good the soil was. Normally, the soil in Rutland is like a sort of a silty material. It's not very good. It's hydrophobic, actually, if it's exposed to the elements for very long. In that particular bed, which had been covered over by weeds mostly for a couple of years, highly granular, perfect color, obviously full of nutrients. There were earthworms everywhere. It was great. Yes, Drennan is actually correct. You can piss on the Terra Preta. You can impregnate it with nitrogen by pissing in it. Just have your family piss in a bucket for a couple of weeks, and then use that bucket of piss. If no one's got any disease or eats asparagus a lot, it'll be more pleasant. And dump that in with the charcoal before you add it. Let's see here. Opinionated Junkie, Distraction, GTA 6 trailer drops. Is it a real one this time? Or is it another fake one? Because we've seen some of those. Garrett, undoubtedly going to see pushes for gun control after the latest mass shooting. Yes, in Lewiston in Maine. Unfortunate. I've decided not to make a video on the subject because it's so fucking formulaic how people react. Some people will say, well, it's the gun's fault. Other people point out that this was someone who already was profiled as fucking nuts and had worked with the U.S. military, should not have owned a gun to begin with, and they'll cast it off as mental illness. So I'd rather wait until they hopefully apprehend the suspect alive. And, well, not really suspect, but you have to use legal terminology when you're reporting on such a thing. Joe Hoffman, Wom to all. I turned 40 yesterday. Congratulations. I'm almost 36 myself, so I don't have very long to wait until that. Joe Aug. Hey, Sticks, or Ajay. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Hey, Sticks, love the show. Would you please wish my girlfriend, Kim, a happy clanking birthday? Peace out, Clankmaster. Happy birthday to Kim. May there be many more happy ones to come. That guy. Love your work, Sticks. What is your take on Trump's lawyers who pleaded guilty in Fulton County? Video about it? I addressed that briefly earlier. I don't see it as meaningful. It's all part of a witch hunt. The whole idea is Fulton comes in, and under their expanded case, they threaten basically, hey, you can flip on Trump or we fucking destroy you. If you choose to flip on Trump, you don't even have to worry about if you make false statements because we'll give you immunity. That's basically the grift. Billy, good morning, Sticks. When is the Steve 1989 MRE Info collab going to happen? Let's get this out onto Trey. Nice. I love his videos, although he's made fewer of them recently. I don't think that we could collab, though. I don't know where he is, physically speaking. Sort of like going on Timcast. I'd love to do so, but I'm in the Netherlands. 0x. War with Iran wouldn't last long for them. I remember the Navy vibe checking their entire Navy into non-existence as proportional response. That being said, hopefully we can get the orange of peace back in the presidency. Yeah, I don't want to go to war with Iran, nor would any reasonable person. We're not talking about Hamas. We're not talking about some non-state actor. We're talking about a state with a reasonable land area, reasonable manpower, reasonable number of machines, and so forth, we'd take heavy casualties. Yeah, we'd win in the end, but at what cost? What's the fucking point? Raisin Hell. Hey, Sticks, do you think the Dems will try to rush out another assault weapons ban? Yeah, one that's DOA. They'll try, but they'll fail. Sigil Stone. Morning, Clankers. Check out the new app, GreyJ. Collates multiple video platforms into one. YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey in the same app. Its Rumble support is found wanting at the moment, though. Yeah, some people have DM'd me about GreyJ. I think the Kino people actually developed it. And, God, I think one of their pages DM'd me a few days ago and said that their developers were Dutch, which I found funny. I'll be looking into it. Dark Gary 92. Why are the Minutemen the best faction in Fallout 4, and why is it based to side with them? I like gaming. I like how, actually, I will simp for Fallout 4 here briefly. I like how none of the factions is fundamentally perfect. The Minutemen are the one that I tend to promote the most. Like, I've literally got the Minuteman flag for a reason. There are arguments to be made for the other factions, though, and I do appreciate that. Although overall, Fallout 4 is mostly a linear experience. I would like to see much more branching, and like the things that you do have much more of an impact on the world around you. It also gives a game more replayability. If you're going to spend 5 or 6 years in between making titles, then you might as well make it highly replayable so that you keep getting attention. Bayonne 201. Good morning from Gay, Stowe, Vermont. My rent is half of my income. Fuck Joe Biden. His inflation is gayer than I am. Buy your guns, people. The Second Amendment is a glorious thing. Yeah, I got to get a couple more guns when I get back again. Probably this spring. I've got to rehab the rest of the garden, so it's going to take probably about a month or thereabouts, especially if I intend to expand. Wasted Bonehead. Good morning from the grave. Uh-oh, Sigil. The zombies here. Billy, Steve 1989 is in Florida, last I heard. Yeah. So, I can't get down to Florida for an afternoon trip to eat an MRE, even though with him, it'd probably be worth it. Anyway, let's continue with this first news story after 12 minutes of ranting. Here's my problem. Israel is about to ground assault Gaza. That's number one. They've pledged to do that. There was a limited assault earlier today. It was actually 8 a.m. local time, which means that I was just sort of waking up when it was wrapping up. They appear to have attacked Hamas fortifications within proximity to the border. And what I said is probably what they wanted was route Hamas near the border to create a buffer zone, so that when they go in, if they have to retreat or something, they're not right up against their own border. So force them back basically a mile or two, and you have a little bit more breathing space, which, I mean, strategically makes sense. And the problem is that Iran has already said that would be a red line, but it's not entirely clear. Here's what I fucking hate. It's the fog of war thing. What's not entirely clear is whether Iran is threatening to personally take action or simply activate third parties that it happens to have sway over, so Hezbollah mainly. But they've already attacked U.S. military positions, so that's not clear. What's also not clear is the extent to which Israel intends to invade Gaza. Do they intend a few lightning strikes in order to repatriate hostages? Do they intend to get in far enough to gas out the tunnel systems? Do they intend to create their security buffer zone, which they've already alluded to? Some combination of the above or something else. It's not clear. And so that becomes difficult. My warning, though, is that it is clear that certain U.S. officials, Blinken is one of them, want a war with Iran. And that would be deadly. Not just because of Iran. Again, you've got Erdogan, who we will be talking about later, saying, well, I don't consider Hamas to be a terrorist force. This is not a fight between the cross and the crescent or anything like that. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that would be lovely. The United States is already arming Ukraine to the point where we're exhausting our own munitions. Then we end up in at least a limited regional war in the Middle East while Turkey decides to potentially leave NATO. Because that's what they would have to do in order to do anything about the U.S. presence in the region. If Turkey did that, they would get kicked out of NATO. And all of a sudden, the Bosphorus closes. And a lot of people, unfortunately, don't understand trade and geography. Turkey controls a shit ton of regional trade, as does Egypt through the Suez Canal, by the way. If Turkey were to close the Bosphorus, like it did, by the way, to the Russians for an extended period of time, to Western groups and say no more, we're tired of this, it would be a real fucking problem for fuel and grain and a few other things flowing through that region from the Black Sea into the Mediterranean and back. That would be an issue if they were to pressure the Egyptians, who are on the fence, much like Turkey. Is Turkey NATO member? Also works with Russia, and Erdogan appears to have a soft spot for Moss. That's a sticking point diplomatically. Egypt, it leans west. It's generally works well with both Israel and the United States, but it's also looking into BRICS. We can't necessarily tell who they're going to side with in a conflict, and they have large militaries. Egypt and Turkey are the big military players in the region, unless you count Israel with its nuclear capability, which is surmised to exist. That could become an absolute goddamn free-for-all. I mean, you'd have millions and millions and millions of troops bombing one another with air power, naval power, tanks, and so it wouldn't be Hamas. It wouldn't be mainly infantry and people with literal fucking parachutes. It would be people in modern tanks. It would be people in relatively modern aircraft. It could get very, very messy very quickly. And if we draw into a war with Iran, I just think, number one, it's not helpful. Number two, it's unjustified at this point. And number three, it could lead to an absolute bloodbath. What if we lose? What if we end up going into the region and we find the situation is so destabilized that we lose? I mean, diplomatically speaking, that's sort of like it's a nail in the coffin of the Western sort of civilization thing that I don't think would be helpful. I would even be reluctant to say it would be a good idea. Now, I would never support such a regional war anyway because I'm anti-war. Let's put that aside, though. So I'm not going to consider the moralism. I'm only thinking about pure, clear-cut strategy. Even if it were 2018, Donald Trump is the president. The military is generally ready and able. It's well supplied. We haven't exhausted a bunch of our munitions to Ukraine. Things are going generally well, or it's the late 90s or something like that, when troop readiness actually reached its peak before 9/11. Even then, I would be reluctant to say that such a potential quagmire was a good idea. And people who said years ago it wouldn't be a good idea all of a sudden show up and start saying that it's okay. And it reminds me of Dick Cheney in 94 warning against invading Iraq and then saying later on, I don't see the problem with this. I think that it's a fine idea. And it really just gives me flashbacks as a millennial. And so I completely oppose the concept. If you want to sit back and allow the Israelis to bomb Gaza into submission, at the very least, we're not physically involved in that. I don't support killing civilians, but it isn't a regional war. It's a localized war, effectively in a very small area. If we do get further involved, though, we risk being humiliated as a nation. There are anti-ship missiles shipped from Russia years ago in the region that could be used by a state or non-state actor against a goddamn carrier group. What happens if we lose an aircraft carrier? That wouldn't be very good. I think the last time the U.S. lost one and wasn't scuttling its own ship was in the 1940s, if I remember correctly. That wouldn't look very good for our troop readiness now, would it? I think morale would go down even further, and that's the other problem. We're having problems even restocking the military because of a reluctance of people to sign up. Is now really the time to be involved in Ukraine and Palestine and Iran at the same time? I say no. And I'm only going by strategic judgment. I'm not talking about the morals involved because I'm just generally anti-war. If somebody directly fucks with us in an egregious manner, what I say is that we should just obliterate them completely, not waste time on any diplomacy, nation building, or anything like that. But if somebody is not doing that, leave them alone. Oh, they want to threaten us. Well, they haven't fired a shot. I don't care if they threaten us. Oh, they decided to, antagonize an ally. Okay, well, was war declared? No? Well, then shut up. Don't get involved. It's too costly in terms of lives, in terms of treasure, in terms of manpower and weapons. strategically. You can get drawn into a hell pit where you lose. Why would we want to get involved in that theater at this time? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, Iran may be a paper tiger when it comes to its naval capabilities, but it's still a large country with a lot of manpower, considerable number of missiles. It does have an air defense system. I don't think it would be as easy as some of the bravado, like gung-ho for the Star-Spangled Banner people think it would be. I just don't think so. Where were we, by the way, on here? I lost my place slightly. I'm trying to find it again. Ah, Christ. Josh Polillo, Steve's address is in the description of his videos. Oh, good. 69 a drummer, is the main event a distraction? No, it was a person who went completely goddamn psycho who had previously actually been in a nut ward. Well, he probably shouldn't have been able to own a gun. I don't believe in red flag laws, but the founders would have said somebody suffering from lunacy is not allowed to own a gun, whether that's an acute temporary thing or a long-term thing. Would have to be determined by the medical community. I realize that that comes with its own problems, but it's better than the alternative. They would have found that everyone else is a member of the militia if they're of voting age. So I don't think it's a distraction. I think it's unfortunate. Wow, no idea why U.S. troops are here in Israel. Well, the moral support is appreciated. I would rather prefer that we handled it ourselves. No, forever war. I mean, I agree. It's not the United States fight. We don't have any territory in the Middle East. Ozzy's robots. If the U.S. gets into a war with Iran, China overwhelms Taiwan. Guaranteed. No way the military can successfully navigate three fronts. They can't even deter Putin. I'm not so sure that China would do that, but if they did, it would be difficult to deter them because the steps that I've proposed haven't been taken. The people of Taiwan remain largely disarmed. Well, it's wonderful. You still have a first world military. You've got a little bit of a navy. You've certainly got good air defense, but you're incapable of maintaining yourself against an onslaught with that much manpower unless your own population fights, because it'd be impossible for them to form a beachhead. JD, did you see the inside scoop from Matt Gaetz that the 3-week speaker fight was mostly McCarthy sabotaging each vote? You are weak without me, What do you think K Street will do? I don't know exactly what's going to happen from here on out. I'm glad that there is actually a speaker at this point. Yeah, Kevin McCarthy was certainly involved. He's a unipartyist, at least partially. He's sort of more on the missing link angle, like a Ted Cruz, though, I think. Vognarvik Gaming. Shout out to Vognarvik Gaming on YouTube. Lol. Clank on. Shout out for yourself. Well purchased, my friend. Alan Smithy. Dems want mental health background checks for gun purchases. Go ahead. White women self-report higher for mental illness. GGWP. Yeah, I mean, it becomes a problem, but the founders were pretty clear on what they consider to be lunacy. Unfortunately, that's not the definition that we use anymore, so that becomes the problem. Sigilstone, fuck the Minutemen. Nuka World Raiders for life. Wasted Boneheads. Sigilstone is a scatophile. It's obvious from how much he likes poo. He did poop on your gravestone. King of Biltong. Good morning from Anton's in Roanoke, Texas. Free shipping for your biltong using code STICKS on www.landofbiltong.com and www.antonsusa.com. First ghost pepper infused Wagyu should be ready tomorrow. Clank. That makes me happy. I will definitely be trying that. Sigilstone. I'm not a shit lover. I'm a shit enthusiast. Connoisseur, if you will. But I am a zombophobe. And Wasted Bonehead. Let's hope John McCain rolls in his grave and we don't bomb Iran. Yeah, I mean, that's my hope. I don't want war with anyone. Aren't you a little bit fucking war exhausted if you're an American at this point? We had the briefest of reprieves under Trump, and then what happens? Hong Kong medical shit goes down. So we had about 3 good years there. And that's the only good years that we've had since I was born. And I'm 35, so... Scott Baser, did you catch the epic libertarian sci-fi webcomic, Quantum Vibe, now in its 12th year, quantumvibe.com? No, I haven't, but if it's a libertarian webcomic, I should probably check it out, yeah. Laughing Dog, have you seen the former prosecutor spilling beans on the Floyd hoax? Yes, I have heard of the George Floyd problem with regards to some shenanigans involving his death. I'm going to make an exclusive on that, but I haven't had time because, I mean, there's so much goddamn breaking news all the time, I can barely even keep up, and that's with the live stream. So I'm doing the best that I can as one person. I'm a one-man army. I don't have a staff or anything like that. So stay tuned. I will definitely be talking about that. Disturbed 2K7. We must escalate the war to prevent escalation. This shit is getting wild. Praying for you and your family all the time, bro. God bless. And God bless you as well. No worries, though. I don't think anyone's going to hit Enschede in the Netherlands with a nuclear weapon or anything like that. If anything, you just get irradiated. So I get ghoulified. Well, that's not that bad. You know, you're immune to radiation. You can drink puddled water and not have any ill effects from it. You know, your skin's peeling off. But other than that, everything's perfectly fine. Next news story. Turkey's Erdogan. Hamas are not terrorists, but mujahideen fighting to protect their lands. Yes, this is an actual assertion by the leader of Turkey. Normally, you'd say, okay, who gives a fucking shit? The problem is that Turkey is in NATO. It's also been standing in the way of a couple of other countries potentially joining, although it pulled back and I think it endorsed the Swedes joining. Erdogan has lost his plumb goddamn fucking mind at this point, because this brings him into direct contravention with the main leader of NATO itself. You can have your opinion, but I mean, was it wise to express it? And how, by the way, are Hamas members mujahideen fighting for their lives? I understand the reference. The reference is basically you're comparing them to a group that was originally funded and supported by the United States when it was fighting the communists. I get the reference. It's not lost on me. So on that one, Erdogan's just being sarcastic more than anything else. But supporting Hamas, I don't know how well that's going to go over. I mean, what are you going to actually do in this struggle? Are you going to get involved? That might bring you into problems with the Kurds, in turn with the Syrians, in turn with Hezbollah, possibly with Iran. Of course, Shia and Sunni is still a thing. He's, I guess, calling for, with the cross and crescent comment, he appears to be calling for some sort of pan-Arab unity. Like, you know, basically like the former Ottoman states, the whole region, like sort of unifies or something. I don't know whether that's really possible, though. You've got sectarian conflict. You've got conflict between state and non-state actors internally and externally. I don't think that kind of unity is really possible. But I think that Erdogan sees himself as basically the next Ottoman Sultan. And he thinks that because Turkey has a more developed economy and a bigger military than most of those other players, that if everything falls to shit, that he can go in and reunify like the Ottoman Empire or something. He really seems to have imperialistic goals in mind. What I would say is I don't think you're actually going to be able to achieve them. I don't think that the other larger players in the world, including the East Bloc ones, I don't think would even fucking tolerate it. Do you think that the Russians would want Turkey controlling, half the world's fuel supply? I don't know. I think that he can play this sort of straddle the line game, and it's not entirely sure he can. But that being said, in that insanity, he could definitely cause problems for the East, the West, literally anyone else under the sun, because they control the Bosphorus. So my hope is that Erdogan comes to his senses, but, we've seen him do some weird stuff before, so there's no guarantee. James Flowers, Weapon Brown is also a decent indie comic. ABF, given your knowledge of demons, do you have much knowledge of the Catholic Church's rite of exorcism and its effectiveness for expelling them? It's fucking useless, actually. I have actually wanted to get the Roman Ritual Book 2, which contains the exorcism rites. I've wanted a copy of that. You can get them fairly expensively in hardcover, along with the other two books of the Roman Ritual. It'd be interesting for academic reading, but no, I don't believe that going through the, I might defend my cause and so forth expels, so-called demonic entities. I'm not a Catholic. I don't believe in ritualism. If anything, the non-ritualistic Christians are the most wise, the ones that use the common book of prayer, and they're a dying breed. The low church lost to the high church because people thought it was fun to have tapestries and funny robes and shit like that. So the ritualists in the end invaded the new world and won. Wasted bonehead. Sticks, I have an anonymous source close to the situation that has told me Sigil is a pervert. Definitive proof. Get fucked, Sigil. And Sigil Stone, read my lips. I did not have sexual relations with that dairy product. Wasted bonehead. Face it, Sigil, you have a problem. Just admit it. We're all here for you, friend. And Sigil, it's not a problem unless I stop filming. It's become the fucking new meme. It's been on the Rumble streams. Sigil versus Bonehead. The zombie versus the dude that pooped on his grave. Primarch Vulcan. Have you ever read or heard of a political comic called The Probability Brooch? It's a story about an anti-Second Amendment person getting transported to an alternate U.S. where everyone exercised their Second Amendment rights. Never heard of it. That sounds interesting. Toxic Mix. Off topic, but do you think there's any chance of RFK taking Massachusetts in the general? No, absolutely not. As a captive masshole for Trump, I'm wondering if it would be more strategic to vote RFK given Trump has no chance here. That's the thing, because RFK does take more Dem votes away, Trump could win. That's the whole point. I've been talking about this for some time. We see that in polling. Wow, I think people are often for war since it doesn't affect them as much. We'll do what we need to do in I don't know exactly what it is, Gaza or God or so. You've asterisked it out. But I'm sick of it all, and I want our soldiers to come home safely. Yeah, that's what I want for everyone. Not just soldiers, civilians, captives, everyone else. Why can't we just fucking all garden or something? You know, there's plenty of room. All we have to do is expropriate Bill Gates' farm, and we could put 100,000 people on there, and they could, you know, have their little gardens and stuff. That would be a better world. Hack bodies. Sticks, I found the perfect land to build a libertarian compound. 1,100 acres. Cabin Flats Road, Balsam, North Carolina, 28707. Jackson County, only $1.5 million. 1.5 million for over 1,000 acres? It's intriguing, although, you know, possibly there's a reason that it's so cheap. Land does not tend to be quite that cheap. Sean 487. Turkey has never been a NATO ally. Remember, they supported Nazi Germany. Why does America always build up its enemies, i.e. China and Turkey? Well, it's literally in NATO, explicitly in NATO, which means that if they were to attack U.S. troops, they'd get kicked out of NATO and they'd get cluster busted. But it would still be, there'd be a lot of attrition. Wasted bonehead. Sigil belongs in a zoo with the other poo-flinging apes. Saw a video once of a gorilla eating its own shit, actually. Wow, YouTube wouldn't accept my message until I censored Gaza. Interesting, because I can see Gaza on your new message. That's odd. Man, YouTube is like that now. They've changed the homepage, too. Next news story, of course, we have a new Speaker of the House in the United States, Mike Johnson. I reported on that breaking last night within about 15 minutes of it happening. What do you see in the news stories with regards to Mike Johnson? Is it the GOP nominates new House Speaker, he gets voted through? No. Is it new Speaker of the U.S. House? You know, thank God that fucking chaos for the last month is gone. Oh, of course not. Here's what it is. New U.S. House Speaker tried to help overturn the 2020 election, raising concerns about the next one. Why do we get the feeling that they're going to turn lemons into lemonade? And if they lose the 24 election, because I think Trump has a pretty good chance of it based on all the metrics I'm looking at, they'll say, well, no. Trump couldn't have won if it weren't for Russian interference through sympathetic House leadership and stuff like that. I think that they will resort to that if it occurs. And my hope, of course, is it does occur. The whole reason, try to kneecap the administration and prevent it from maneuvering. That's the long and short of it. ABF. Thanks for response. To respond, there are indeed many documented cases of rite of exorcism expelling demons. As for your other point, why would Calvin, Luther, or Henry VIII have any authority? I'm not saying any of them have any authority. I'm saying that if you're going to be a Christian, worship Jesus as Jesus would have wished to be worshipped if you think that's what he wanted, and go help the poor and things like that. You don't need to be building cathedrals. That wasn't the point. There are no documented cases of exorcism actually working unless you assume that those individuals had demons inside them. Therein lies the problem. If a person believes themselves possessed, so it's psychosomatic. If a person is a lunatic and acting possessed and simply judged to be so, etc. Especially before the rise of modern psychology, you can't necessarily vouch for the efficacy of that particular ritual. Nonetheless, I am interested in the topic. I'll definitely, in fact, thank you for reminding me. It's been a while since I thought about getting a copy of the Roman ritual, but I probably should. I am interested in Catholicism. It's just I don't believe in it. I don't believe in exorcism. I don't believe in demons the way Christians tend to believe in them, etc., etc. So yeah, we've got a new U.S. House Speaker, and the only thing the legacy media can say is he's an extremist that tried to destroy your democracy. So don't trust him. Interesting. Trip Boom. I wonder if we can make a short film with Sigil and Wasted. Yeah, I mean, if y'all could get together, that'd be hilarious. It could be an animated series. We'll make a cartoon about that. A dude accidentally wakes up a dead zombie by pooping on his grave because he ate too many French RCIRs. He got, really diarrhea, and he happened to be in the graveyard, so he pooped on the grave, and then a zombie came out, and then the whole story is basically this dude and the zombie are trying to kill each other constantly, like chasing each other around the world and constantly trying to evade capture, evade one another. It's like Spy versus Spy, only with poop involved. That'd be kind of fun. Sigil Stone, I don't fling poo. That's disgusting and unsanitary. I belong in the hippo enclosure, launching it everywhere from the source. Yes, if you look up a hippopotamus shitting, you'll see they spin their tail around underneath their poop stream, and they just blast it everywhere. It's like an automatic shotgun. It's pretty impressive. Alan Smithy. I don't know why they voted in Mike Johnson. They could have voted in Mike Hunt or Mike Hawk or Sadie N-word. Sean 487. That is the point. Turkey is in NATO and is working against its members, constantly supporting terrorism and attacking other NATO members in Cyprus. Former Canadian soldier, seen their ship. Yeah, the problem is they control the Bosphorus, and that's really the reason why that's done. Also, it's further east, so if you want missile stations, nukes especially, it sort of makes sense. Wasted Bonehead. Thoughts on The Exorcist? Excellent movie. Very excellent. With Linda Blair, of course, as Regan. Not Reagan, though. Mulgera85. Wish me luck. I'm driving out to New Jersey in an hour to go to a deathcore concert. Have fun. I'd go to a deathcore concert. Next news story. This is mildly concerning, I suppose. I'll preface this. I support assisted suicide. If a person is terminally ill, I think that they should have the right to die peacefully. I don't think that you should force them to live, and not just with a DNI sticker. So hey, after I suffer for the next 3 weeks and go into cardiac arrest, then, I can finally be gone. I think palliative care and the use of drugs, really, which is what we already do in old folks' homes, plus, just, put the bag over your head, basically, is like Kevorkian style is actually better than the alternative. Nonetheless, I'm concerned with Canada's specifically loose regulatory structure with regards to assisted suicide. It's official, MAID, which is their system there. More than 4% of all deaths in Canada in 2022. A total of 13,241 deaths. It's a stunning 13-fold increase over just 7 years. If MAID were listed as an official cause of death, it would effectively be the 5th leading cause of death in all of Canada. Here's my problem. I don't believe anyone should have to suffer in order to have the sweet relief of death or something like that. You get all totally fucked up. You're incapacitated, and the government effectively says, well, it's a good thing that you're too weak to tie your own noose, so you're going to sit there and suffer for the next 5 months. No, I believe at the very least a person should be able to explicitly request suicide and end their life if they want to and die with some degree of dignity. By the way, they should be able to request whatever method they want. If they want to blow their brains out or something like that, it's up to their own conscience. I don't have a problem with that either. But when you have this many suicides in a single year, does this not point perhaps to the overprescription of assisted suicide for people who in some cases may have been treatable. I mean, I'm hearing about cases where a person has a lack of healthcare access in Canada, and the doctors say, well, don't worry, we can always help you to get this shot. I'm thinking to myself, that's a little bit ghoulish. I mean, at the very least, let them take part in medical experimentation, like under the Right to Try Act of Trump in the United States. At the very least, okay, you're severely depressed. Well, there's some clinical study that might, one time in 1,000, create relief. You can be part of the cutting edge of science, and possibly you feel better and you go on to live a long life. But that doesn't apparently make you as much money as just fucking slaughtering people. 13,000 people is an awful lot for a nation with the population the size of Canada. And it makes me very much suspicious that they are overprescribing assisted suicide. So it's not somebody who's like, look, you got end-stage cancer. There's nothing that we can do. It's metastasized. It's in all your organs. You're dying. Your bones are literally going to rot out of their fucking sockets. And it will be painful. No matter how much morphine we give you, at some point we hit the maximum dose. We're not allowed to actually kill you by giving you a little bit more. And so you're going to suffer before you die for an extended period. Let them die. Absolutely. If it came to that, if I thought that I was going to sit there languishing for 6-7 months and be unable to do anything, I'm going to get incapacitated to the point where I can't even make the choice to kill myself, I would do so preemptively. I think that should be absolutely legal and allowed. It's also unenforceable to stop it. That being said, when I see this many deaths, when I see it arguably the 5th leading cause of death in a nation it's developed. You know, Canada is not exactly the most miserable place in the world to be. I just have a sneaking suspicion that there's something desperately wrong here. And I think that I'm probably right in that particular judgment. Assisted suicide is fine. Although in my opinion, assisted suicide is basically help me lift this 1911 here, you know, in the chest and not in the head, because I'm phobic about that, by the way. Rather die of blood loss than brain loss, because, I mean, imagine that you, like, fracture your brain. So you're still alive for a while, but, like, some of your memories have just literally gotten chunked off of the rest of your brain. And so, I mean, you keep breathing for a short period of time, but you don't even know where you are, who you are. Everything's fucked up. That sounds terrifying. It sounds a little bit like having my near-fatal overdose. I think I would put one in the chest cavity instead. It's a chance that you miss, but, you know, as long as you tell everyone else to go on vacation for the next couple of hours, it probably doesn't matter, and you still suffer less in the end, so that's okay. There are other methods as well. That's what I would choose anyway. Let's see. We have I read that one. God, it's impossible to keep these in line. Sigil Stone, the problem with assisted suicide is a suicidal person is not of sound mind and can't make such a decision. I disagree. If their reason is, hey, I just got diagnosed with something that's going to kill me anyway, I really don't care. That being said, I have a feeling it's being diagnosed for a hell of a lot more than that. Oh, you've got seasonal depression and winter's coming? I'll take this pill. It'll make you feel better. And you'll be dead. You'll stop breathing, but you know, afterwards, there's no more pain. Beyond 201, if my 30-year-old bum hip was in Canada, not Gaystow, Vermont, they would have put me on a wait list and offered me suicided. Thanks for the new hip, Obama. Paid for the whole thing. Sigil Stone, I think we can safely conclude that Canada is a nation of freaks and bastards and a ghoulish parody of civilization. Their government? Yeah, absolutely. Wow, government should be forbidden from AS. You know what they will do. Oh, assisted suicide, yeah. Yeah, government shouldn't be involved. It should be up to the person, basically. And if they are reasonably of sound mind, ideally the family helps make that decision. They're like, no, Dad, don't do it. And he's like, well, I've got 4th stage cancer, so I'm not going to be around anyway. Fucking put me out of my misery. Then go ahead and hand him the revolver. That would be the ultimate best suggestion, but it's illegal. Yeah, government is the problem. People can't make their own decisions. In the end, I mean, if that happened to me, I would make my own decision and I wouldn't ask for anyone's permission. It's like, what are you going to do? Throw a person who's got 4th stage cancer or something in jail? Probably not. Aussie's robots, between abortion, assisted termination, LGBT, climate hysteria, open borders, etc., Western liberals are a self-deleting demographic. Arguable. Hack bodies. It's a state park-like conservation property with 6 miles of maintained roads. Plenty of trout, bear, turkey, and deer. Room for a bunch of off-grid cabins. Sounds like a cool living. Pilgrim Media. They'll try red flag law SSRI. No gun for you. I've warned of that before. When people do the red flag shuffle, basically they're saying to the government that they should be able to take guns away from anyone ever diagnosed with ADHD. Good luck, number one, and good riddance to your stupidity, number two, when you fail. Psychophantic. While I don't believe assisted suicide isn't immoral necessarily, I don't think it should be legal. Canada's worsening MAID problem seems an inevitable outcome. Yeah, just decriminalize it. Make it clear to people if you do ultimately choose to do that, and there are methods you can do that relatively painlessly, I guess. I don't want to run afoul of YouTube's medical misinfo policy, so I'll be vague on this one. No, I don't think that the government doesn't need to provide the assistance. Preferably, you've got some friend or relative in the world that's willing to hand you a plastic bag, basically. Wasted Bonehead. Speaking of gay Stowe, Vermont, Sigil just admitted to being gay. Congrats for coming out. Problem is he is now sexually harassing me. Yeah, he wants to bone. You're a zombie, so you can give him one. Sigil Stone, it ain't gay if it ain't got a pulse. It also can't get an erection, though. Bayonne 201, I am a gay, Trump-loving MAGA Republican. Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, I have no problem with anyone based on their sexual proclivities as long as they're not, banging a kid or something like that. But it's a long-running joke here, and it keeps getting crazier over time, which I actually love. This is my lifeblood as a content creator. This is the best entertainment that I can get. By the way, please don't send any more super chats, though, because, again, my soup is brewing, and it smells like it's probably close to done, and I really don't want to burn this because I fucking love lentil soup, and I made it extra buttery and creamy, and it should be delicious. Joe STBS, love the content. Thank you very much, Joe. Sending $50. That'll buy a lot of diapers, which is very much necessary. Actually, Liz is out right now running the stores and has to get diapers, so that definitely helps. Every little bit helps. Diapers, caffeine, the electrical bill, arguably, because I do live streams and stuff. Food. Although, again, I will say I've got a little bit of a reprieve when I'm here in the Netherlands. Food is more expensive in the United States, by and large, unless it's locally grown or something like that. Definitely the U.S. has higher food inflation. JD, the scary data for Canada was 30% in a poll was fine with the state deciding for other behalf of things like poverty and homeless. Yeah, that's the other part, is that some people want the state to be able to force somebody to die in order to alleviate their suffering. That I don't support. That's no longer assisted suicide. That's the death penalty. I'm against the death penalty. Find it funny how some people who are actually for that, and I'm like, what are you fucking smoking? Oh, wait, it's Canada. I think we can guess. Wow, soup is the best food ever. I eat it every day. Yeah, I would say about half of the dishes that I make really well are soups, actually. I take after my father on that. Sigil Stone, no more super chats, but then how am I going to tell everyone that I'm going to start game streaming this weekend? Not on YouTube or Twitch. I plan on saying off the wall shit. Details to come tomorrow. You'll have to announce that on tomorrow's live stream then. Sigil Stone 17 on Rumble. He is going to get into game streaming. Sounds cool. Joe, hello, Mr. Sexy Hammer. 1 to 10 likelihood of World War III soon. 2 out of 10. Still very unlikely, but the fact that we're even talking about the measurableness of it should be enough to give people cause to starve. We shouldn't even be fucking talking about it. We should be civilized enough to have gotten past that point, but apparently not. And then, final news story. Atlanta travelers, and they're not the only ones, say plainclothes DEA agents seized their cash at the gate after they passed a security check. Plainclothes DEA agents are accused of seizing innocent travelers' money at Atlanta airport during drug searches. Yes, it appears that we now have civil asset forfeiture by DEA agents at U.S. airports, which is concerning because, Generally, if you're doing international travel, you're probably not doing it via cruise. You're probably doing it via an airport. This should not be happening. And this is something I wanted to talk about this because there's actually a subject on which I agree more with the left than on the right. More people who are conservative for some inordinate reason are okay with civil asset forfeiture, or at the very least don't really talk about it too much. So like their outrage level's less. Maybe they don't support it so much as they just don't really care about the issue as much. I guess the idea is, well, I don't break any laws, so I'm fine. The problem is that these people aren't breaking any laws. They're getting the money repatriated after legal proceedings, even though it costs more to do those legal proceedings than the actual money that they got stolen in some cases. If you come through security, the onus is effectively on you, unless it's a very small amount of money, a couple hundred or something like that, to show like receipts and shit like that to make sure that it's not drug money. I think that that's completely ridiculous. If a person wants to come with a duffel bag full of Benji Greens, $500,000 goddamn dollars, they should be able to do so. It's their luggage. It's their person. They already went through security. The money's not going to blow anyone up. The money itself is not a drug, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's basically just an extension of the deep state's desire to control everything that you do. That's why they want a cashless society. If everything is digital, then, well, we can easily kick you out of the fiscal system. It's as easy as kicking you off of this app or something like that. Oh, you're raising a problem? Well, maybe your money is declined at that vendor over there. Your reputation's not good enough. It's like a Chinese system. I oppose civil asset forfeiture in all of its forms. In this case, we're not even talking about like actual law enforcement. We're talking about bureaucrats that work for the DEA. That's actually even worse. These people weren't arrested. They weren't charged with a crime. They were simply selected for an extra security check, which is semi-random. There is profiling. The liberals are fundamentally right about that. These days, they probably profile people with MAGA caps more than anything else. So, I should take mine through security, see what happens. Thankfully, I don't have wads of Benjamins in my duffel bag. And then they took the cash. And they said, well, this is suspicious. So we're just going to hold this money for you. Yeah, I mean, it's yours. You earned it. But we think that it might have something to do with the coke trafficking trade, so you're not allowed to have it back. How the hell is that even goddamn fucking legal, by the way? A person should be able to go through with anything not explicitly prohibited. If the airlines want to say you can only take up to $1,000 through the gate or something like that, they have the right to do so. The DEA does not. Why is Congress not talking about this issue, by the way? Do you not think this could be used for political profiling? They're claiming racial profiling. Well, I'm black and I didn't do nothing and, they're taking my money away from me, assuming that I'm dealing marijuana or something. Okay, in some cases that's the case. What if it's some pink-haired freakazoid at the woke DEA who decides you've got the MAGA cap on, so you're awfully suspicious and you just happen to have $10,000 in your boot? Well, I don't think that you need that anymore. Quite clearly, you're selling illegal arms or drugs or something like that. This is why I oppose censorship. It's a double-edged sword, and I don't want to be on the receiving end of the bladed side. And there's two of them, so, swish, swish. Hack bodies. What kind of wizard staff would you have and use? I've actually got one back in Rutland. It used to be a pine tree when it was a kid, but then it died. And all of its stems got debrided really, really perfectly. And then it spent probably several years drying out, getting wet, drying out, and getting wet again, and getting hardened on the cobblestones in the riverbed out back till it's basically a compressed version of driftwood. So then I wine stained it, and I brought it home, and I cut off the bottom part and smoothed that off. And yeah, I've got a wizard staff back in Rutland. Looks almost a little bit like Gandalf's staff, actually. Manuel Watrago. Bring back Roman flag. Good show. Finally woke up early. Thank you very much. Actually, I had the Libertarian flag shipped here. I do have the Minuteman flag, but I don't know exactly where it is. That is here. And I had meant to set it up, but I haven't had time. Hi, Pot Thesis. Any chance of playing Sonic Frontiers? Doesn't sound interesting to me. Sorry. Anyway, I think I'm going to go offline here. Also, my Camera decided I should be fuzzy all of a sudden. I thank you to the nearly 5,000 people that decided to watch live. I will be live again tomorrow, but not on the weekend. Keep in mind, on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I do not do live streams unless there's something really, really important. And I mean, considering there's a looming potential third world war or something like that, my hope is that that doesn't happen. My hope is that I just get to keep spending the weekends. I get comfy. I put on my robe. I eat good food, spend a lot of time with my baby daughter and my wife, and that I don't have to report on Saturday or Sunday. Because if I go live on Saturday or Sunday, there's probably something terribly wrong. So you should be hoping that I maintain that 5-day-a-week schedule. I'll be back with more news tomorrow. We're going to have some fun. And we'll see about this epic fight between Sigilstone and Wasted Bonehead, and see where that continues to go as they continue discussing their own fetid turds and things of that nature. So I thank you all for arriving. Thank you all for your patronage. I will be back. That's about all. Peace out.